57 Super Bowls are now in the books, so I figured I might as well go back in time and grade each and every one of them for your enjoyment. So you better enjoy this or else I'll cry and sob uncontrollably. These grades are based on entertainment value and how competitive the game was. Enjoy. Super Bowl I. A sneaky close game at halftime before Green Bay took over in the second half to make it a blowout. Props to Green Bay's Max McGee for catching 2 touchdowns while hungover. Key moment of the game, on the opening drive of the second half, down just 4, Kansas City's Len Dawson threw an interception that was returned by Green Bay's Willie Wood to the KC 5. Green Bay's Elijah Pitts then ran it in to put Green Bay up 11, and KC never got close again. Grade D. Super Bowl II. A straight blowout by Lombardi's Packers. The game was never close at any point of the second half. Key moment of the game, Donnie Anderson's 2-yard touchdown run to put Green Bay up 23-7 midway through the third, effectively sealing the game for Green Bay as Oakland's offense struggled all day. Grade D-. Super Bowl III. Will always be most remembered for famous premarital sex enjoyer Joe Namath's guarantee, but was actually a sloppy, turnover-infested game. Also the last time the Jets won anything important. The key moment of the game, despite a horrific first half up to that point, heavily favored Baltimore was down just 7-0 with 2:34 left and had the ball on New York's 15-yard line when quarterback Earl Morrall threw a horrible interception at the goal line. Baltimore never got closer to tying the game ever again. Grade D. Super Bowl IV. Yet another early Super Bowl where the game was one-sided, as Kansas City was in complete control virtually the entire time. It's more famous for head coach Hank Stram's mic'd up segment than anything that actually happened on the field. Key moment of the game, Len Dawson's 46-yard touchdown pass to Otis Taylor to make it 23-7 KC to kill any momentum Minnesota had after finally cutting KC's lead to 16-7 just a possession earlier. Grade D+. Super Bowl V. Proof that not all close games are well played. Came down to the final play, but not before the teams combined for an astounding 11 turnovers. The only time in NFL history a losing player won Super Bowl MVP, Chuck Howley. Key moment of the game, Craig Morton's horrific interception deep in Dallas territory with a minute left that set up Baltimore kicker Jim O'Brien for the game-winning 32-yard field goal. Grade C-. Super Bowl VI. Dallas finally broke through to win it all in convincing fashion against an up-and-coming Dolphins team. The most famous play remains Dallas's Bob Lilly sacking Miami quarterback Bob Greasy for a 29-yard loss. Key moment of the game, down 17-3 early in the fourth, any chance Miami had of winning evaporated when Greasy threw an interception in midfield, which was returned deep into Miami territory and immediately turned into a Dallas touchdown to extend their lead to 24-3 and seal the game. Grade D-. Super Bowl VII. Miami completed their infamous perfect season in this defensive struggle. Ironically, the most famous play from this game is Miami's kicker Garo Yepremian's fumble, which was returned for Washington's only points. Key moment of the game, down 14-0 with 5:33 left in the fourth and the ball at Miami's 10-yard line, Washington quarterback Billy Kilmer threw an end zone interception to Miami's Jake Scott to kill Washington's best offensive drive of the day. Considering Miami gave up a special teams touchdown immediately afterwards, the interception looks even worse. Grade C-. Super Bowl VIII. Miami won their second straight Super Bowl title in dominating fashion against Fran Tarkenton's Vikings. The game was never close at any point. Key moment of the game? There aren't many great choices, but if you're looking for the moment the game became a sure Miami win, Larry Zonka's 2-yard touchdown run to go up 24-0 early in the third is probably the answer. Grade D-. Super Bowl IX. A very boring game that saw almost no offensive action, which isn't shocking considering the 2 famous defenses involved. Also the beginning of the Steelers dynasty of the 1970s. The key moment of the game, Terry Bradshaw's touchdown pass to Larry Brown to go up 16-6 and seal the game with 3:38 left after Minnesota had just cut the lead to 9-6 on a blocked punt return touchdown. Grade C-. Super Bowl X. A game most remembered for Lynn Swann's acrobatic catches, this was one of the first Super Bowls to actually be competitive the entire way through, especially in the fourth quarter. One of 2 Super Bowl victories for Pittsburgh over Dallas in the 70s that decided the team of the decade. Key moment of the game, the fourth quarter was full of them, but the most crucial play was Terry Bradshaw's 64-yard bomb to Swann to put Pittsburgh up 11 with 2 minutes left. It's not talked enough how badly Dallas choked away the fourth quarter in this game. Go look it up for yourself. Grade B+. Super Bowl XI. Oakland finally got over the hump to win a ring while Minnesota lost their 4th Super Bowl in 8 years. This game was never really close and largely boring unless you're a Raiders fan. It was also John Madden's only Super Bowl win and appearance in his legendary career. Key moment of the game, down 12 early in the fourth with enough time to still make it interesting, Minnesota quarterback Fran Tarkenton threw a terrible interception in midfield, and a few plays later Oakland turned it into a Pete Banaszak touchdown run to go up 19 to effectively end the game. Grade D. Super Bowl XII. Dallas won their second ring of the decade in this decisive 17-point victory, in large part due to an astounding 8 Denver turnovers. The game was never really close in the second half. Key moment of the game, with Denver still hanging banging around down 13-3 midway through the third, Dallas quarterback Roger Staubach launched a 45-yard touchdown pass to Butch Johnson for a quote-unquote touchdown that probably wouldn't have held up today, put Dallas up 20-3. Denver never got closer than 10 points ever again. Grade C-. Super Bowl XIII, a legitimately great game that effectively decided the dynasty of the 1970s. 9 touchdowns were scored, including 7 through the air. There was even a defensive return touchdown that it really is not that unsimilar to this year's Super Bowl, minus the refs ruining the game at the end. Key moment of the game, Jackie Smith's famous drop in the end zone that would have tied the game at 21-21 for Dallas late in the third quarter. Instead, Dallas had to settle for a field goal and ended up losing by 4 points, which is the difference between a touchdown, an extra point, and a field goal. Grade A. Super Bowl XIV. Pittsburgh would win their 4th ring in 6 years in this sneaky competitive game where they were actually losing entering the 4th against an underdog Rams team led by Jimmy G's 1970s counterpart Vince Ferragamo. But a huge fourth quarter by Pittsburgh's offense brought the title home in the final chapter of one of the NFL's greatest dynasties. Key moment of the game, down 24-19 with 6 minutes left and the ball at Pittsburgh's 32-yard line, the handsome Ferragamo threw a horrendous interception to Jack Lambert. Terry Bradshaw then led Pittsburgh down the field for another touchdown drive to go up 31-19 to seal the game. Grade B-. Super Bowl XV. My Eagles are 1-3 in the Super Bowl, and this was by far their worst showing, getting the crap kicked out of them by a wild card Raiders team led by Jim Plunkett, aka 1980s Eli Manning. The game was never close thanks largely to 4 Philly turnovers. Key moment of the game, Plunkett's 29-yard touchdown pass to Cliff Branch in the third to go up 21-3, which effectively threw a wet blanket over any possible Eagles comeback. Grade F-. Super Bowl XVI. The beginning of the 49ers dynasty almost never happened in this highly forgotten game, with many forgotten crucial mistakes by the Bengals. Joe Montana's first Super Bowl appearance was easily his least impressive, although he still played relatively well, but 4 Cincinnati turnovers, especially in the red zone, were enough to give San Francisco the 26-21 win. Key moment of the game, down 20-7 late in the third, Cincy had 3 tries from the San Francisco 1-yard line to cut the lead 20-14, but San Fran's defense kept them out with a goal line stand, including an incredible tackle on third down by San Francisco linebacker Dan Buns. Considering San Francisco won by just 5 points and became the team of the 80s, this goal line stand is one of the most crucial moments in NFL history that's not really talked about often. Grade B. Super Bowl XVII. A strike-shortened 9-game season gave this Washington title a major asterisk, but they did come up clutch in the fourth quarter against a Miami team that was formidable everywhere besides quarterback, something they would fix in the upcoming 1983 draft. Down 17-13 entering the fourth, Washington reeled off 2 touchdowns to win 27-17. Key moment of the game, Joe Theismann's touchdown pass to Charlie Brown. No, not that one. With 2 minutes left to go up 27-17 to seal the championship, with help from John Riggins, of course. Grade C+. Super Bowl XVIII. The 1980s version of Broncos Seahawks. Washington came in with a historic offense and got completely shut down and owned by an underrated Raiders squad. The game was never really close as LA won by 29 points in this 38-9 ass-kicking. It's also the last time the AFC would win the Super Bowl until 1997. Key moment of the game, Marcus Allen's 74-yard touchdown run is the most famous play of the game, but it came when the outcome was already decided. The real moment the game changed was on Joe Theismann's horrific pick six to LA's Jack Squarick that made a 14-3 LA lead into a 21-3 LA lead just before halftime. Washington never got within 12 points ever again. Grade D. Super Bowl XIX. One of the greatest Super Bowl quarterback matchups ever on paper, Joe Montana versus Dan Marino. Unfortunately, it wasn't nearly as close of a game as people expected. Marino's historic 1984 season ended with a thud in this disappointing 38-16 loss, the only Super Bowl appearance of his legendary career, while Montana dink and dunked his way to monster numbers and his second ring and second Super Bowl MVP. Key moment of the game, Montana's second touchdown pass to Roger Craig that put San Fran up 38-16 midway through the third effectively ended the game, as Miami's high-powered offense never scored again against the first-ranked 49ers defense. Grade C. Super Bowl XX. One of the most famous blowouts in NFL history, a flash-in-the-pan wildcard team like New England never stood a chance against a team that many consider the best of all time in this 46-10 romp. It's a wonder how Chicago only won 1 championship in the 80s, no quarterback. Key moment of the game, I wanted to put the moment the Bears got off the team bus, but if I had to choose a point the game effectively ended, I guess it would be Jim McMahon's touchdown run, put Chicago up 20-3 midway through the second quarter. Grade D-. Super Bowl XXI. The first of John Elway's 3 blowout Super Bowl losses in the 80s was actually a game that saw Denver have a halftime lead before the wheels fell off in the second half. Phil Simms statistically had the best Super Bowl performance ever by a quarterback in this 39-20 Giants win, their only decisive Super Bowl win in franchise history. Key moment of the game, up 10-7 with the ball at New York's 1-yard line and a great chance to potentially go up 10 points, Denver ran 3 plays for -1 yards and then missed a chip shot 23-yard field goal. They wouldn't score again until they were down 33 33-10 in the fourth quarter. Grade D. Super Bowl 22. The second of Elway's 3 blowout Super Bowl losses in the 80s once again saw Denver take an early lead 10-0 after one, for Washington had arguably the greatest quarter in NFL history, dropping 35 points to seal the game before adding one more touchdown in the second half to reach final score of 42-10. Key moment of the game? I honestly could have just picked the entire second quarter, but I would say Doug Williams' 50-yard bomb to Ricky Sanders to go up 28-10 was the nail in the coffin unofficially. Grade D. Super Bowl 23. One of the very few close and entertaining Super Bowls in the 80s. The game that put Joe Montana in the GOAT convo as he won his third ring after a monster fourth quarter that featured a legendary game-winning drive to win at the very end 20-16. Ted Bundy would be executed 2 days afterwards in a prison just 5 hours away from where this game was played. Why did I include this? I don't know. Key moment of the game? Statistically, Joe Montana never threw an interception in 4 Super Bowls, but he should have. Down 13-6 early in the fourth, Montana threw a pass that Cincinnati defensive back Louis Billups read perfectly, but straight up dropped in the end zone. Instead of it being Cincy's ball up 7, Montana found Jerry Rice on the very next play to tie the game at 13. Grade A. Super Bowl 24. The biggest blowout in Super Bowl history and also the game that cemented Joe Montana as the GOAT in many people's minds for a while, as he won his 4th ring and 3rd Super Bowl MVP after throwing 5 touchdowns in only 3 quarters in this 55-10 win over John Elway's Broncos. Key moment of the game? Considering that this was never really a game, it's hard to pick just one play, but Montana's bomb to Jerry Rice to go up 27-3 just before halftime let everybody know this one was over for good. Grade F. Super Bowl 25. Now we enter the Buffalo Bills misery zone, and as they say, the first cut is the deepest. This 20-19 loss against a team playing its backup quarterback is easily the Bills' most heart-wrenching Super Bowl loss. A first-half lead of 12-3 and a 19-17 lead in the fourth quarter didn't hold up, and the game famously ended on Scott Norwood's wide right kick to seal another lucky championship for the Giants. Shout out to Whitney Houston for the GOAT national anthem performance. Key moment of the game? Is there any other choice? Scott Norwood's missed 47-yard field goal as time expired was the difference between Buffalo winning a ring and not winning one. 33 years later, the franchise is still searching for its first title. Grade A+. Super Bowl 26. A game that wasn't nearly as close as the final score of 37-24 would indicate thanks to 2 garbage time touchdown passes by Jim Kelly. Washington completed one of the most dominant and, quite frankly, underrated seasons in NFL history, and it's also the last time they've ever been relevant on the field. Key moment of the game? Mark Rippon's 30-yard strike to Gary Clark to make it 31-10 late in the third after Buffalo had just cut the lead to 14 the drive before, which let everybody know the Bills would be back-to-back Super Bowl losers. Grade C-. Super Bowl 27. Jim Kelly got knocked out of the game early in the second while Buffalo committed 8 turnovers on the day in this 52-17 romp by Dallas, which honestly should have been 59-17 if not for Leon Lett's infamous gaffe. The start of Dallas's mini dynasty of the 90s and the best game of Troy Aikman's career, but the game was over by halftime. Key moment of the game? Thurman Thomas's fumble with Buffalo trailing 21-10 just before halftime set up Dallas deep in Buffalo territory, and one play later Aikman found Michael Irvin for an 18-yard touchdown to put Dallas up 28-10 to drain all the life out of Buffalo. Grade F. Super Bowl 28. The only time in Super Bowl history 2 teams met in back-to-back years. This time the Bills would actually look promising for a bit, even taking a 13-6 lead into halftime, but then the wheels fell off in the second half as Dallas took a dump on their faces to win comfortably 30-13 to seal their second straight title and Buffalo's 4th straight Super Bowl loss. Key moment of the game? Up 13-6 early in the third quarter with the ball, Thurman Thomas fumbled and it was returned 46 yards for a touchdown by Dallas to tie the game at 13. Buffalo never scored again as all the fight went out of them while Dallas took over. Grade D. Super Bowl 29. In an era where the NFC Championship game was the real Super Bowl, it was no shock the loaded 49ers dismantled the Chargers in this 49-26 rout. Steve Young had the game of his life, throwing a Super Bowl record 6 touchdowns to carve out his own legacy and move himself out of Joe Montana's shadow. The game was never close at any point. The key moment of the game? With San Francisco up 28-10 early in the third, the game was already in hand, but Ricky Waters' 9-yard touchdown run to make it 35-10 destroyed any remaining hope San Diego had. Grade D. Super Bowl 30. Another one of those games that was closer than most people remember. Dallas would win 27-17, but Pittsburgh had a chance at the very end. A solid Super Bowl, but not legendary. However, one of the best during the NFC's 13-year run of dominance from 1984 to 1996. It's also the last time Dallas played in a game after the divisional round. Key moment of the game? Down 20-17 with 4 minutes left, Pittsburgh quarterback Neil O'Donnell had a chance to give Pittsburgh a lead or tie the game, but instead threw a terrible interception to Larry Brown, which set up Emmitt Smith's game-sealing touchdown for Dallas a few plays later. Grade B. Super Bowl 31. Yes, it's hard to believe, but Brett Favre did actually win a Super Bowl once, a very long time ago, before he became known for throwing terrible interceptions and allegedly, I say committing massive welfare fraud. This 35-21 win by the Green Bay was relatively exciting, although although the fourth quarter was somewhat anticlimactic, as no points were scored, preventing it from being one of the best Super Bowls ever. Key moment of the game, the obvious choice here is after New England had cut Green Bay's lead to 6 late in the third quarter, Super Bowl MVP Desmond Howard stole all the momentum right back with his 99-yard kickoff return touchdown to put Green Bay back up by a comfortable 14 points. New England never threatened again. Grade B-. Super Bowl 32, the game that ended the NFC's 13-year streak of Super Bowl wins. At the time, Denver was viewed as a plucky underdog, but with hindsight, they were absolutely loaded, and it's no surprise they prevented Green Bay from repeating as champs. John Elway finally got his ring, even though he really didn't do anything, and the game went down to the final seconds. Key moment of the game, Green Bay had several chances to take the lead or tie the game in the fourth quarter, but failed, and I couldn't choose just one play, so I went with two in particular. Favre overthrowing a wide-open Antonio Freeman with the game tied midway through the fourth that would have put Green Bay in field goal range, and Freeman dropping what could have been a monster play on Green Bay's final drive. Either way, Denver hung on to win 31-24 in part because of these two mistakes. Grade A+. Super Bowl 33. Pretty forgotten about because people were pissed that it wasn't Vikings-Broncos instead, but don't worry, the Falcons were still blowing countless opportunities in the Super Bowl long before 28-3. Atlanta had 7 drives where they got inside Denver's 26-yard line, but they could only muster 12 points on them. John Elway was named Super Bowl MVP in the last game of his career, which also saw him win his second ring. Key moment of the game, late in the third quarter, down just 17-6 at the Denver 21-yard line, Chris Chandler threw a tipped interception that was returned 58 yards by Denver. A few plays later, Denver converted it into a touchdown to go up 24-6 and effectively end the game. Grade C+. Super Bowl 34. A Jeff Fisher coach team once made the Super Bowl? That's correct. And they did so against a quarterback that came out of nowhere in Kurt Warner. Year one of the greatest show on turf ended with a championship, but not before Tennessee made them earn it. St. Louis had a 16-0 lead in the second half before Tennessee rallied to tie it at 16-all with 2 minutes left. A 73-yard bomb from Warner to Isaac Bruce put St. Louis back on top in a thriller that literally came down to a yard. Key moment of the game, I wanted to put Warner's game-winning touchdown to Bruce, but come on, this game will always be most remembered for the tackle. Mike Jones, a St. Louis linebacker average in both name and game, was able to bring down Tennessee wide receiver Kevin Dyson as time expired at the 1-yard line to win St. Louis the title in regulation in one of the greatest finishes in sports history. Grade A. Super Bowl 35. Quite possibly the worst quarterback matchup in Super Bowl history between Trent Dilfer and Kerry Collins lived up to the hype in terms of shittiness. Dilfer at least had a nice touchdown pass, while Collins had arguably the worst performance by any quarterback in Super Bowl history. But this game will always be remembered as the crowning achievement for the legendary 2000 Ravens defense, as they held New York to 0 points on 18 drives. Super Bowl MVP Ray Lewis's killer instinct can't be overlooked either. Key moment of the game, after the Giants had finally gotten on the board with a kickoff return touchdown to make it 17-7, and somewhat interesting, Baltimore's Jermaine Lewis took all the momentum right back with an 84-yard kickoff return touchdown to put Baltimore up 24-7 late in the third. Grade D. Super Bowl 36. The beginning of Tom Brady's reign of terror, but at this point he wasn't quite Tom Brady yet. He was still a 6th-round game manager going up against the big bad greatest show on turf who were looking for their second ring in 3 years. But Emperor Belichick's defense shut down the best offense in the league for 3.5 quarters, while Brady dinked and dunked at the end to set up Adam Vinatieri for the Super Bowl winning 48-yard field goal. Key moment of the game, Ty Law's pick 6 midway through the second quarter put New England on the board and gave the team just enough points to get across the finish line. Without it, the Brady-led New England offense produced just 13 points on 11 drives. Not the only time he'd do so in a Super Bowl win versus the Rams. Barf. Grade B. Super Bowl 37. What looked like a potentially competitive game after one quarter quickly turned into a Tampa blowout. John Gruden got revenge on his old team in this 48-21 spanking, thanks in large part to his legendary defense, forcing 5 interceptions, 3 of which they returned for touchdowns. Let it be known that Brad Johnson is the Tampa Bay quarterback with the largest Super Bowl win in franchise history. This game also basically destroyed the Raiders franchise for the next 2 decades. Key moment of the game, like other Super Bowl blowouts, there's really no one play that decided it, but Brad Johnson's second touchdown pass to Keenan McCardell to go up 27-3 late in the third is when the game felt truly over for the first time. Grade D. Super Bowl 38. A 32-29 New England win that saw all points scored in the second and fourth quarters. This was Tom Brady's first truly great playoff performance in 6 tries. He played up to his clutch reputation, answering everything Carolina and Jake Delhomme threw at him in the fourth quarter to win his second ring and first legit Super Bowl MVP. But as always with Brady, he did get some major help to get across the finish line. Key moment of the game, John Casey's kickoff out of bounds with a minute left that set up Brady and New England at their own 40 to make it easier for them to get into field goal range for the game-winning kick, which is exactly what happened, as Adam Vinatieri kicked a 41-yarder through the uprights for his second Super Bowl winning field goal in 3 years. Grade A. Super Bowl 39. The Spygate Patriots cemented themselves as a dynasty with their third 3-point Super Bowl win in 4 years, this time against my Eagles. The game was close throughout, even tied at 14 going into the fourth quarter, but missed opportunities early on, paired with with Donovan McNabb's mistakes late, ruined Philly's chances of hosting Lombardi. Brady was his usual boring dink and dunk self, while Corey Dillon and Deion Branch were too much to handle for Philly's D. Key moment of the game, Donovan McNabb's interception to Teddy Bruschi with 7:27 left in the game while Philly was moving the ball down 10 killed any real shot Philly had of coming back. New England trimmed more time off the clock, and then Philly went on an excruciatingly long touchdown drive to cut it to 3 with 1:55 left, but if not for that McNabb interception, they could have done it 5 minutes earlier. Grade B+. Super Bowl 40. Bill Cowher finally won his elusive Super Bowl in his 14th season as Pittsburgh's head coach. But it wasn't without controversy, as many believe the refs screwed the Seahawks at key moments. This game was pretty boring, but it was close in the fourth, but Pittsburgh's trick play touchdown pass from Anton Randall to Hines Ward to go up 11 with 9 minutes left sealed famous women respecter Ben Roethlisberger's first Super Bowl win. Key moment of the game, early in the fourth, Seattle was down 14-10, but following a questionable holding call in Seattle, Matt Hasselbeck threw a brutal interception in field goal range. A few plays later, Pittsburgh took an 11-point lead, and Seattle never threatened again. Grade C+. Super Bowl 41. Peyton Manning finally got his elusive Super Bowl ring in his 9th season with this 29-17 win over the Bears, but it wasn't without major help from his defense, and also getting to face Rex Grossman didn't hurt either. Manning won his only Super Bowl MVP by default, basically, for putting up solid, not great numbers in a downpour in Miami. This was a close game in the fourth, but it never really felt suspenseful. Key moment of the game, down 22-17 early in the fourth with a chance to lead a go-ahead drive, the much-maligned Rex Grossman finally showed his ass and threw a terrible pop-up to Indy's defensive back Kelvin Hayden, who returned it 56 yards for a pick six to put Indy up 29-17. Chicago never scored again. Grade C. Super Bowl 42. You know the deal. The 2007 Patriots were looking to cement their status as the best team in NFL history by going 19-0, but an upstart Giants team made just enough plays and had just enough magic to spoil the storybook ending. Key moment of the game, the Tyree helmet catch. Could it possibly be anything else? If not for this fluke 32-yard catch on 3rd and 5 on New York's game-winning drive, they almost definitely lose this game, although Eli's 3rd and 11 conversion to the other Steve Smith later in the drive gets overlooked as well. Grade A+. Super Bowl 43. Who would have thought a Super Bowl featuring the Arizona Cardinals would be arguably the best Super Bowl ever? Pittsburgh, led by their dominant defense and timely plays from their clutch young choir boy quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, did just enough to overcome a reborn Kurt Warner and dominant Larry Fitzgerald to win their second ring in 4 years, with help from James Harrison and Santonio Holmes as well. Key moment of the game, this came down to two choices, the Holmes game-winning touchdown catch or James Harrison's 100-yard interception return touchdown to end the first half. I decided to go with Harrison. Instead of being tied or even ahead at halftime, Arizona went into the locker room down 10, and even though Warner would lead them back to take a late lead, his historic blunder was too much to overcome in the very end. Grade A+. Super Bowl 44. Peyton and the Colts were looking for their second ring in 4 years, and up to the start of the Super Bowl had gone 16-0 that season in games Peyton started and finished. Nobody really expected the feel-good story from New Orleans to beat the Colts, but after a 10-0 Indy lead early on, New Orleans settled down and controlled the rest of the game. Thanks to a famous onside kick and Drew Brees' precision dink and dunking, New Orleans ended up winning 31-17 in the only Super Bowl win and appearance of Drew Brees' career. Key moment of the game, Tracy Porter's pick six off Peyton Manning late in the fourth quarter when Indy was driving to tie the game gave New Orleans an insurmountable 31-17 lead with 3 minutes left to clinch the title. Grade A-. Super Bowl 45. The Steelers were looking for their third title in 6 years, while the wildcard Packers were seen as little more than fodder. But it was young Aaron Rodgers, not the two-time Super Bowl champ Ben Roethlisberger, who showed out on the biggest stage, throwing lasers and putting up monster stats that could have been better if not for a lot of drops. Despite Rodgers' greatness and a pick six from his defense, Pittsburgh had one drive at the end, down 6 with a chance to win, but turned it over on downs. It felt like the start of a dynasty for Green Bay, but that dynasty never happened. Key moment of the game, Pittsburgh running back Rashard Mendenhall's lost fumble on the first play of the fourth quarter with Pittsburgh trailing 21-17, set up Green Bay with great field position that they capitalized on with a Rodgers touchdown pass to retake an 11-point lead. Grade A-. Super Bowl 46. Like 4 years prior, the Pats were favored to win, but by not nearly as much against a Giants team that went just 9-7 in the regular season with a negative point differential. Tom Brady looked in complete control for the first 2.5 quarters outside of an intentional grounding safety, while Eli Manning and the Giants settled mostly for field goals to just hang around. In the end, thanks to New York's defense once again coming up clutch in the fourth quarter and a great late drive by Eli, New York took a 21-17 lead with a minute left, and a last-gasp Hail Mary by Brady fell incomplete to secure New York's second ring in 4 years and Brady's second Super Bowl loss to Eli. Still hilarious. Key moment of the game, up 17-15 with 4 minutes left, Tom Brady had Wes Welker wide open on a 2nd and 11 for what should have been an easy first down that would have allowed New England to drain more time off the clock and potentially score a game-sealing touchdown. But Welker dropped what was a bad but still catchable pass from Brady. New England eventually punted, and Eli used his crunch time magic to hand New England another Super Bowl double L. Grade A-. Super Bowl 47. The Harbaugh Bowl started out looking like a Baltimore blowout, with Joe Flacco continuing his unprecedented 2012 playoff run with 3 touchdown passes in the first half to give Baltimore a 21-6 halftime lead. But San Fran roared back with a vengeance in the second half after the Superdome's electricity failed. They had multiple chances in the second half to tie or take the lead, but in the end it came down to Baltimore making a goal line stand against American hero Colin Kaepernick to squeak out this 34-31 thriller in class act Ray Lewis and Ed Reed's final games with Baltimore. Key moment of the game, Jacoby Jones' 108-yard kickoff return touchdown opened the second half, gave Baltimore a 28-6 lead that would only look more important once the game was over, as Baltimore's offense largely struggled in the second half, scoring just 6 points on 5 drives. If not for Jones' kickoff return touchdown, Baltimore probably loses. Grade A. Super Bowl 48. Peyton Manning just had a record-breaking season, leading the highest scoring offense of all time, and a second ring kind of felt inevitable. Safe to say, everybody overlooked Seattle. Right from the errant snap to start the game to put them in a 2-0 hole, Denver never looked like they belonged on the same field as Seattle. The game was over by halftime in this 43-8 blowout Seattle win that's still hard to comprehend all these years later. It's also hard to comprehend how that Seattle core never became a dynasty. Key moment of the game, down 15-0 late in the first half, Denver had finally started moving the ball and got into field goal range, but on 3rd and 13, Peyton Manning's arm was hit as he threw. The ball popped into the air and Super Bowl MVP Malcolm Smith returned it 69 yards for a touchdown to give Seattle a 22-0 lead that took all the momentum out of Denver's sails. Grade F. Super Bowl 49. Brady and Belichick had gone a decade without winning a title, but they would get their third shot at ring number 4 against the new dynasty in the making in Seattle. In typical Brady fashion, he was mediocre for 3 quarters as Seattle took a 24-14 lead into the fourth, before he started dinking and dunking his way to 2 straight touchdown drives, while New England's defense shut Seattle out to take a 28-24 lead with 2 minutes left. A freak catch by Jermaine Kearse set up Seattle inside New England's 5 with a minute left, and everybody thought another Super Bowl L for New England was on the way, but then an undrafted rookie showed up out of nowhere. Key moment of the game, Malcolm Butler's Super Bowl winning interception on the 1-yard line with 26 seconds left to help New England hold on to their 4-point lead is the greatest interception in NFL history, and probably the greatest defensive play in NFL history, and possibly sports history given the circumstances. Fuck him though for helping Brady win. Grade A+. Super Bowl 50. Career-wise, Peyton Manning is arguably the best quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. Single season-wise, he is also arguably the worst quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. Make no mistake, the 2015 Broncos won the Super Bowl in spite of Manning with their legendary defense. Carolina came into this game 17-1 with the league MVP Cam Newton, and at no point did Cam ever look comfortable. This was an ugly game that was close but not very exciting. But it is the last time we'll probably ever see a legitimately dominant defense in the NFL. Key moment of the game, despite this game usually being remembered as a blowout, Carolina had not 1, but 2 drives in the fourth quarter down 6 with a chance to take a lead. But Von Miller's chip sack of Cam, who famously didn't dive on the fumble, ruined Carolina's last chance at winning. And a few plays later, Denver's offense finally got in the end zone to make it 24-10 with 3 minutes left to seal the game. Grade D. Super Bowl 51. Okay, since this game is very triggering for me as a Brady hater, I'll be quick with it. Atlanta scored a lot of points to take a big lead at 3 quarters while Tom Brady looked awful. But then in the fourth quarter, Atlanta couldn't score, and Brady caught fire to eventually tie the game and win the game in overtime for his 5th ring and 4th Super Bowl MVP, and to unofficially become the GOAT and pass Joe Montana. Key moment of the game, the Edelman catch. Instead of a likely Super Bowl losing interception with 2 minutes left, Brady saw a crappy pass somehow go through 3 defenders for a 23-yard completion. From this point onward, everybody knew higher powers were at work and New England was going to win, which they did. Grade A. Super Bowl 52. The Eagles finally won their elusive Lombardi Trophy by shocking the world with a 41-33 win against Brady and Belichick with a backup quarterback. There was absolutely zero defense played in this game outside of one play. Receivers were running wide open all the time, leading to insane numbers for both quarterbacks, although Nick Foles dropped several dimes. Do I feel bad for Brady that his defense gave up 41 points to waste his monster effort? Nope. Welcome to the real world, pal. I wish it had happened more often. Like his Super Bowl 46 loss, Brady's final pass was a Hail Mary around midfield that fell incomplete. Key moment of the game, Brandon Graham's chip sack with a 38-33 lead with 2 minutes left to stop Brady from producing another game-winning drive in the Super Bowl, which is what everybody and their grandma thought was going to happen the moment he got the ball back down 5. Not this time, pal. Grade A++++. Super Bowl 53. Typical Brady luck. A year after his defense had one of the worst showings in Super Bowl history, his defense carried his ass with one of the best showings in Super Bowl history, completely shutting down a 500-point Rams offense in a 13-3 win. Yes, that's right. This was Brady's second Super Bowl win against the Rams, where he led his offense to just 13 points on 11 drives. The game was close all the way through, but don't mistake it for being great. It was a brutal watch, made all the worse by Brady winning it for his 6th ring. Key moment of the game, Stephon Gilmore's interception off of Jared Goff with a 10-3 lead with 4:24 left to stop the Rams from tying the game. It essentially sealed the game as New England would drain clock and take a 13-3 lead soon after before the clock finally hit 0. Grade F-. Super Bowl 54. The Mahomes era officially began on this night as he overcame game a rough first 3 quarters to seal the game at the end with 2 fourth-quarter touchdown passes against my beautiful boy Jimmy Garoppolo in this 31-20 KC win. San Francisco was in control most of the way, and Jimmy G badly outplayed Mahomes through 3 quarters, but Mahomes came through when it mattered most to win his first ring and Super Bowl MVP by default. His defense came up clutch in the 4th, and he also lucked out with Jimmy missing an open Emmanuel Sanders for a go-ahead touchdown with 1:40 left. Key moment of the game, down 20-10 with 7 minutes left and facing 3rd and 15 against an elite defense, Mahomes found Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate Tyreek Hill for 44 yards to keep hope alive. From this point on, KC was never stopped again and took complete control of the game to win by 11. Grade B. Super Bowl 55. One of the worst Super Bowls ever in every way. Tom Brady won, this time without Belichick and the Patriots, so his fans were extra reckless. The game itself was a snooze fest for most of the second half as Tampa's elite defense teed off on a decimated KC O-line and injured Mahomes to win 31-9. The refs also gave Tampa Bay a bunch of ticky-tack pass interference calls late in the first half, which also put a stain on this one for me, but it's okay. It happened in a pandemic year with no fans, so it's a Mickey Mouse ring and it doesn't count. Key moment of the game, thanks in large part to several aforementioned crap defensive pass interference calls, Brady extended Tampa Bay's lead from 14-6 to 21-6 just before halftime with a short touchdown pass to famous Rhodes Scholar Antonio Brown. KC never got closer than 12 points the entire second half. Grade F. Super Bowl 56. I never thought I would see the Bengals or Matthew Stafford in the Super Bowl in my lifetime, let alone in the same Super Bowl, but it really did happen. One of the very few Super Bowls in recent memory where I really could have cared less who won or lost. LA jumped out to a 13-3 lead early before Cincy ripped off 17 straight to go up 20-13. Stafford almost screwed LA with a shaky second half, but his defense, led by Aaron Donald, gave him 4 chances to win the game. After taking a 23-20 lead with 1:25 left, LA's defense stopped Joe Burrow and his undeserved clutch reputation for the 5th straight drive to win the title. Key moment of the game, Stafford's game-winning 1-yard touchdown pass to daughter dater Cooper Kupp to give LA a 3-point lead with 1:25 left. Grade B. And finally, Super Bowl 57. I thought this game was a win-win, as either my Eagles would win their second ring in 6 years, or Mahomes would win his second ring to close the gap on Brady. The best case scenario was for Philly to win while Mahomes put up good numbers, and that almost happened. Jalen Hurts showed out, producing 4 touchdowns and throwing about 6 or 7 dimes, including a clutch game-tying drive in the 4th to make it 35-35 with 5 minutes left. This was a legitimately classic game, and I was ready to accept whatever the outcome was until the goddamn fucking refs ruined it with a horrible flag that essentially gave KC the game. The Philly fan in me could accept losing to Mahomes and Reed because they're both great, but losing in large part due to a flag will eat at me forever, as well as the field being horrible, which negated Philly's historic pass rush. Key moment of the game, the terrible defensive pass interference flag against Philly on the same play a Kansas City offensive lineman committed a blatant hands to the face penalty that handed KC the game. No, seriously. Alright, fine. If I had to choose one play, Jalen Hurts' fumble return touchdown by Nick Bolton is probably the answer. Instead of going up 17-7 or 21-7, it made it a 14-14 game and gave Kansas City just enough points to win at the end. Grade A-.